The cover-up goes deeper than just silence. There are whispers of forbidden experiments conducted in the shadows of the Cold War. Declassified documents hint at projects where scientists attempted to communicate with DNA using specific frequencies. The results, allegedly, were mind-boggling. They could repair damaged DNA, influence cell behavior from a distance, and even transfer genetic information from one organism to another without physical contact. These experiments suggested that DNA is a resonant liquid crystal that can be programmed with light and sound. But the projects were abruptly shut down, and the lead researchers were discredited or met with untimely ends. Why? Because this technology, if made public, would revolutionize medicine and energy, collapsing the trillion-dollar pharmaceutical and oil industries. More importantly, it would prove that our biology is technology. Consider the phenomenon of quantum entanglement, where two particles remain connected across vast distances. What if human consciousness operates on a similar principle? What if our DNA is the physical antenna for this connection? This could explain intuition, premonitions, and the feeling of being watched. It's not magic, it's biological quantum physics. Our creators, understanding this perfectly, designed us to be intrinsically linked to the fabric of space-time itself. When we have a gut feeling or a moment of profound insight, we might actually be tapping into this cosmic network, accessing data from the universal cloud storage encoded in our very cells. Imagine our DNA not as a simple blueprint, but as a cosmic library. This library contains countless books, most of which we haven't even learned to open. But recent suppressed research suggests that some of these books contain more than just biological instructions. They may hold the secrets of physics and mathematics that could allow us to travel between stars, manipulate gravity, or harness zero-point energy. The reason we struggle to conceive of technologies like warp drive is not because they are impossible, but because the knowledge is already within us, locked away in sections of our genome that we still label as junk. The creators didn't just give us a body, they gave us the keys to the universe. We just need to find the right door. The greatest discovery in human history will not be made in a distant galaxy. It will be made inside ourselves. The answer to the eternal question, are we alone, is a resounding no. We are the legacy of explorers from another world. And as we stand here today, on the threshold of a new era, we must ask ourselves not if we will meet our creators, but what we will say to them when we do. Will we be a failed experiment, mired in war and self-destruction? Or will we be a successful one, having used their gift to reach for the stars and finally come home? The choice, as it has always been, is encoded in us. It is time to start reading the manual. So, what does this mean for you, personally? It means you are far more than you have been led to believe. You are not a cosmic accident. You are a living library, a vessel of ancient star-born knowledge. The longing you feel when you look at the stars is not loneliness. It is homesickness. The incredible potential you feel locked within yourself is not an illusion. It is your birthright, waiting for the code to be executed. The creators did not abandon us. They left the instructions for our ascension within us, waiting for the day we would develop the technology and the wisdom to read them. The next step is activation. What if the environmental changes on our planet, the increasing solar radiation, or even our own rising consciousness are triggers? What if the junk DNA is now starting to wake up? We are seeing a rapid expansion of human consciousness, of intuition, and of psychic phenomena. People are feeling more connected to the universe than ever before. This could be the next stage of our development, written into our genes from the very beginning. We are not evolving randomly, we are unfolding according to a plan set in motion eons ago. But the truth cannot be hidden forever. We are now on the cusp of the Great Awakening. With the advent of CRISPR and advanced gene editing technology, we are no longer just reading the code, we are beginning to write it. This is the most critical phase of the experiment. Are we mature enough to handle the tools of our creators? Every time we splice a gene, every time we attempt to defeat a disease or enhance our capabilities, we are, in a way, following in their footsteps. We are proving that we are indeed their children, inheriting the same drive to manipulate the building blocks of life. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect they want to suppress is the purpose of the junk DNA. What if it contains the keys to our own evolution? Codes for psychic abilities, for telekinesis, for perfect health and longevity? What if our yearning for the stars, our deep-seated feeling that we are not alone, is not a philosophical question, but a biological imperative, a pre-programmed command to seek out our creators? The God gene, the part of our brain that seeks a higher power, might not be a metaphor. It might be a homing beacon. The establishment fears what would happen if humanity ever learned to fully access its own source code. It would be the end of their control. The second reason is more sinister: suppression. There is a powerful, shadowy establishment, a deep state of science, if you will, that controls the flow of information and, more importantly, the funding. What happens to a biologist who publishes a paper seriously proposing an extraterrestrial origin for DNA? Their career is over. They are ridiculed, their funding is cut, and they are exiled from the academic community. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is how paradigm police operate. There are also whispers of government agencies confiscating anomalous biological artifacts and silencing researchers who get too close to the truth. The secret is too dangerous, they believe, for public consumption. So, with all this evidence, why is there a wall of silence from the scientific establishment? The first reason is fear. Fear of a paradigm shift so colossal it would shatter every foundation of biology, anthropology, theology, and history. Overnight, every textbook ever written would become obsolete. The proud narrative of human achievement would be humbled by the realization that we are an experiment. It's a psychological blow that many in academia are not prepared to take. To admit this is to admit that our entire understanding of our own identity is wrong. It's easier to dismiss it as pseudoscience than to face the existential vertigo of the truth. We don't have to look just through microscopes to find proof. We can look at our oldest stories. Every ancient culture speaks of gods who came from the stars and created humanity. The Sumerians detailed the Anunnaki, who genetically engineered the first humans to serve as workers. The Dogon tribe of Africa, millennia ago, possessed precise astronomical knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, claiming their ancestors were visited by fish-like beings from that system. The Bible says, "Let us make mankind in our image, after our likeness." The word Elohim, often translated as God, is plural. It means those who came from the sky. These are not primitive myths. They are fragmented historical records of a genetic intervention, passed down through generations until their true meaning was lost to ritual and religion. And they left their signature. One of the most breathtaking pieces of evidence is the cosmic connection. Researchers and rogue scientists have pointed out stunning numerical and pattern-based coincidences. For instance, the structure of our DNA, the number of chromosomes, and even the precise angles of the chemical bonds reflect fundamental mathematical constants, like pi and the golden ratio constants, that are also found in the architecture of galaxies and star systems. Some have even claimed that the arrangement of human chromosomes, when mapped out, mirrors the star pattern of specific constellations, like Orion, a constellation revered in ancient cultures as the home of the gods. This is not a coincidence. It is a cosmic "you are here" sign a breadcrumb trail back to our point of origin. Who were these creators? We can speculate they were a race of unimaginable antiquity and intelligence, a species that had mastered not just interstellar travel, but the very fabric of biology itself. For them, DNA was not just a building block. It was a canvas, a quantum computer, and a historical record. They weren't mere gardeners planting seeds. They were architects writing their own story into a new genesis. Their goal may not have been to create slaves, but to cultivate a successor, a reflection of themselves in a new galactic neighborhood. We carry their image, not in our face, but in our very cells. The official story of abiogenesis. The sudden spark of life in a primordial soup is fraught with problems. The mathematical probability of even a single protein forming by chance is so astronomically low, it's akin to a tornado sweeping through a junkyard and assembling a fully functional jumbo jet. It doesn't add up. Now consider the panspermia theory, but not the random version. Consider directed panspermia. What if, billions of years ago, an intelligent civilization, perhaps facing their own planetary extinction, sought to preserve their legacy? They would have sent their biological signature across the cosmos, encoded in resilient microorganisms, tailored to thrive on a young, promising world, Earth. We are not their accident, we are their project. The evidence begins with the code itself. DNA is a language. It has an alphabet: adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. It has words, sentences, and paragraphs, genes, that instruct the construction of a living being. But here is the first anomaly. In any human language, we find redundancy, inefficiency, and junk words. Yet for decades, scientists called vast sections of our DNA junk, believing it to be useless evolutionary leftovers. They were wrong. This so-called junk DNA is not junk at all. It is a complex regulatory network, a library of dormant functions. It's as if we have been given a book, and for centuries we could only read a few chapters, arrogantly dismissing the rest as meaningless scribbles. But what if those scribbles are the most important part of the message? Instructions waiting to be activated. Look at the human body, a masterpiece of evolution, we are told, a product of random chance and natural selection over billions of years. But what if that's not the whole story? What if, embedded deep within every single one of your cells, lies a message, a code so complex and so elegant that it defies the very logic of random mutation? This is the story of the greatest secret ever kept, that our DNA is not a product of blind nature, but a deliberate design, a blueprint left by creators from beyond our world, and the terrifying truth of why mainstream science is too afraid to admit it. The truth is also hidden in plain sight, encoded in our ancient symbols. Take the caduceus, the staff with two intertwined snakes, a symbol of medicine for millennia. Is it a coincidence that it is a perfect representation of the DNA double helix, a structure we only discovered in the 20th century? Or consider the universal myth of the serpent offering forbidden knowledge to humanity. This is not a story about a literal snake. It is a metaphor for the manipulation of our genetic code, the moment our creators upgraded the primitive hominid, granting it the spark of consciousness and self-awareness. The serpent is the DNA itself, the twisted ladder within us, offering the knowledge of good and evil, the knowledge of our own creation. The message in our DNA is not a prison sentence, it is a declaration of potential. It tells us that we are not alone, that we are loved, and that we are part of a magnificent cosmic story. The silence of mainstream science is the last echo of an old, dying paradigm. The future belongs to the brave, to those who are willing to look within and read the story written in their own blood. The greatest adventure in human history is about to begin. It is not a journey out into space, but a journey into the core of what it means to be human. And when we finally understand that code, we will finally understand that we are and always have been galactic. So, what is the ultimate purpose of this grand experiment? Perhaps we are not the end product. Perhaps we are an intermediate step. The ultimate goal of any advanced civilization is not just to survive, but to create, to bring forth new life and new consciousness. Our creators may have seeded countless worlds, and our destiny, once we fully unlock our genetic heritage, is to become creators ourselves, to take the spark they gave us and use it to kindle life in the cold, dark corners of the universe. We are the children of the stars, and our inheritance is the entire cosmos. What are the potential consequences of this awakening? We could see the emergence of new human abilities. Telepathy not as a fantasy, but as a natural form of quantum communication. Psychokinesis, as we learn to interact with the quantum field through our DNA. The end of disease, as we learn to consciously reprogram our own genetic expression. This is the true potential of the human being, the potential that has been deliberately suppressed. The social and economic systems of the world, built on our ignorance, would crumble to be replaced by a society based on unity, cooperation, and the full expression of our creative power. This is what they truly fear. The activation of this dormant code is not a singular event. It's a process, and it may be happening right now, globally. We are witnessing an unprecedented acceleration in human consciousness. Terms like collective consciousness and the Great Awakening are trending for a reason. People are becoming more empathetic, more intuitive, and less tolerant of old systems of control. This could be a biological shift, a mass triggering of the psychic and spiritual capacities written into our non-coding DNA. As the Earth's magnetic field shifts and we are bombarded with new cosmic energies, it might be acting as a catalyst, turning on the lights in sections of our cosmic library that have been dark for millennia. Even our own embryonic development screams of intelligent design. So-called junk DNA contains the instructions for building complex structures that serve no purpose in our current form. Why do human embryos develop and then dissolve, gill slits and a tail? The standard explanation is that we carry the legacy of our evolutionary ancestors. But what if it's the other way around? What if these are unused blueprints, options left by the designers? The potential for aquatic life, for different limb structures, for sensory organs we can't even conceive of. We are a multi-purpose vehicle, but we've only ever learned to drive on one type of road. In the modern era, the censorship is more sophisticated. It happens at the level of data. Genomic databases, like the one used for the Human Genome Project, are allegedly scrubbed of anomalous sequences. Certain repetitive patterns and mathematical codes which don't fit the evolutionary model are labeled as viruses or errors and removed from public view. Biologists who stumble upon these artificial segments, sequences that look less like random mutation and more like elegant compact computer code, are told they have contaminated samples. The gatekeepers of science have become the curators of our ignorance, protecting us from a truth they deem too destabilizing.